Welcome to a cool, crisp morning in December in San Diego, California. It's interesting today. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of thought, and a lot of talk about the barefoot movement, minimalist movement. A lot of fallacies, a lot of good truths as we try and get back to the root of movement. Kind of my experience with the Vibram 5 fingers. I've been wearing them almost 6 years now as a strength and conditioning coach and coordinator with the Minnesota Twins. This was something that I had my players progress into. Majority of guys use these for in-season and off-season stuff. We just kind of mixed and matched accordingly. But kind of the purpose behind less on your feet is that it teaches your body to become dependent upon itself for cushion, shock absorption, and support, rather than relying upon the shoe for something that's artificial. When you depend upon your body to do the work, it allows your body to communicate with itself as a unit to improve your posture, your alignment, and your awareness. The foundation to function is posture. The foot and the ankle complex is the foundation to the body's postural systems. And like the big arch out in St. Louis, Missouri that crosses the Mississippi, that bridge is representative of the gateway to the west. And like the arch of the foot and the bridge in St. Louis, the arch of the foot is the gateway to the rest of the body's posture and balance systems. And so without control and without balance, we're not going to move very efficiently and very consistently well. When thinking about making the transition to something lighter and something less, and going on into the 5 fingers, it's important to balance out what your goals are and what your expectations are for movement, and also what your functional strength is, what your core strength is, and what your foot and your ankle strength is. It's good to go through a good functional movement screening to go through, take a look at imbalances and distortion patterns. A normal shoe will really mask and limit and kind of give us a false sense of what we actually can do. It really covers up our imbalances and our distortion patterns, where the less you have on your feet, the more aware you are of your limitations, your thresholds, and of just overall spatial awareness, where your body is in relation to space, how and when the 700 joints of your body need to move in whatever dimension they need to at just the right time, with just the right amount of force, with just the right amount of force absorption and resistance absorption to control and to stabilize the right joints in the right sequence at the right dimension and right time. It's really important to realize that although you might want to really further your cardiovascular endurance, although you might really want to improve your strength, it's really good and important to focus on posture and to allow your body to recorrect the way that it should move. So closing the gap between your asymmetries and imbalances, and working on becoming more symmetrical, because ultimately your body is responsible for making the adjustments it needs for you to move better. When making the transition to the 5 fingers or something light, it's easy to be very cynical about movement and to take movement for granted. It's really important to realize that you aren't going to initially be able to do as much as what you think you're able to. Moving with less on your feet is a very, very humbling experience. It really gets to the root of athleticism and function. Less on your feet is a real, genuine, authentic view and assessment of what you actually can do as a mover. How well you're able to use your strength, your stability, your flexibility, your balance, your power, your endurance, your coordination, your timing, and your rhythm multidimensionally to reduce and to stabilize, to transfer, and then to produce force in all planes. A typical shoe is going to have a lot of cushion and a lot of material underneath the toes and underneath the heels. There's a couple terms that shoe companies use to describe all that material, kind of the anglage of the material under the feet. It's drop and it's stack. So the material from underneath the sole of the shoe to inside the shoe underneath your heel, that distance, as well as, which is called stack. And then also the material underneath the sole of the shoe, underneath the forefoot where the toes are, to inside the shoe, the bottom of the shoe, underneath your foot. That angle from heel to toe is drop. A typical shoe is set up almost like in a high heel type format, where it rotates your pelvis forward, it shortens your hip flexors and your quadriceps, and disengages your butt and your hamstring musculature, which are huge muscles in decelerating the resistance of your body weight as you take your steps, when you run, when you jump, when you squat, when you lunge, when you crawl, when you bend, when you twist, when you climb, when you throw, rotate, propel. It's really important to think about the foot and the ankle complex, again, being the foundation of the body's posture, as having the access to the range of motion we do then at the foot and the ankle complex in the 5 fingers or barefoot. The body is then able to turn on its sensory receptors. When the body is able to turn on its sensory receptors, it's able to learn, it's able to make adjustments, it's able to adapt, it's able to become more athletic and more skillful. When we lock up the midfoot of the foot, the tarsal metatarsal joint and the transverse tarsal joint, and then the subtalar joint, we take away stability and flexibility from the kinetic chain. When we do that, the body is going to compensate. It's going to go to the knee, the hip, the lumbar, thoracic, cervical spine, somewhere else throughout the body to get its range of motion, to get its flexibility, and to get its stability. The body will then compensate and form different forms of imbalances. We are asymmetrically imbalanced creatures as humans. We're not perfect. We're more dominant with one side of the body than the other. The jobs that we have, the recreational activities that we engage in, the little daily chores that we have, sometimes have a tendency to allow us to develop pattern overload, continually doing the same pattern and the same point of motion with the same muscle and movement patterns. And so what we want to try and do is eliminate that. We want to try and become more symmetrical, or as symmetrical as we can. Again, we're not perfect. We can't ever expect to be perfect from the right side of the body to the left side of the body, or through the diagonal rotational patterns throughout the body's core equally from one side or to the other, but we can certainly close the gap and shorten the bridge between that. And that's our intent, that's our purpose, and that's what the 5 fingers, that's what barefoot, that's what allowing less on your feet allows the body to do. It allows it to make adjustments, it allows it to experiment and to learn, to develop customized movement and posture, dynamic posture that's relative to the individual. Movement and posture are not like a cookie cutter. They're not a gingerbread cookie cutter that you get at Christmas time. Not everybody gets the same thing. Not everybody needs the same thing. Not everybody's foot and ankle or knee and hip and back and their kinetic chain is the same. We need to take into account individual uniqueness and individual beauty. There's no secret recipe or cookie cutter that says you should run X amount of miles after 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. This is what you should do in the gym 2 weeks and 2 weeks and 3 weeks and 4 weeks. This is about you having a plan and a purpose for what you do movement-wise, survival-wise. It's having fun, it's experimenting like you're a little kid in the backyard again. It's about taking pride in your work. It's about moving with a purpose. It's about learning how to control your feet and the rest of your body, because that's real. We need to relearn how to connect to the root of movement and shake off the conspiracy of shoes, insoles, orthotics, machinery, equipment, it takes work to become better as a mover and to become more efficient, but in us all lies an athlete, a person that looks and strives to enjoy life, someone that looks to share that with another human being, and other people and families and friends. It's really, really important to love and enjoy life, and to take the opportunity of this gift that we've been given to make life more simple, to keep track of what we're doing, to log what we're doing, to chart our growth, our evolving, and how we transform. It's a beautiful part of life. I really encourage you to get on out there, to put less on your feet, to experiment, to respect movement, and just take a day at a time, take a session at a time, reflect on what you're doing, and have a purpose with everything that you do. Go wild.